Welcome to Sharing Love and Light Show, Vibration and Consciousness on the Planet, where we talk about all things metaphysical, manifestation, and starseeds. I am your host, Kimberly Barrett. I am a psychic medium, quantum energy healer, and starseed activator, here to hold the light and help shift the vibration and consciousness on the planet. Sharing Love and Light Show is here every week on Ethereal TV, designed to help you tap into your personal power and shift your energy so you can step into your life's purpose and manifest your dreams. I believe love is not a verb, it is a state of being. In this week's episode, I have a special guest with me here in the studio, my dear friend, Chandi Challa. She is an awakened woman, writer, and astrologer. Chandni has agreed to come on and share her love and light messages with us by offering us a glimpse of esoteric astrology. She's going to share her experience, her wealth of knowledge, and I agreed to be an open book and allow her to go dig into my astrology chart to demonstrate this wonderful method of astrology with you here today. So stay tuned for the next hour as we bring esoteric astrology to life. So we are in the studio. I have Chandni here with me.
Hi.
Hi. And she is going to share with you our absolutely awesome topic on astrology. She has an amazing viewpoint, an amazing way of talking about it. And then we're going to bring in an example.
It should be fun.
So go ahead and tell us what we're doing, Chandni.
Yeah, so I'm sure many of you know astrology and you know the discipline. In fact, you're probably particularly interested in it. The way that I look at astrology is a bit unique. First, I really look at the natal chart, which is your astrological chart at the time you're born, as a blueprint, basically, for the energies that are available to you in this incarnation. So unlike a lot of people who sometimes look at it very deterministically, I look at it as more of a fluid document, something that gives you insight as to who you can be in your highest and greatest manifestation. And so when I look at someone's natal chart, I also make sure to look at what's called the progressed chart. So the natal chart is your static chart of when you were born. That chart actually progresses 1 degree every year that you're alive. And so what the progress chart does is it shows the unfolding of the energy of your natal chart. So that's why as you move through life, you kind of take on different personas, right? You also have different experiences, and you develop into a more interesting sort of layered individual. And that can actually be seen very clearly in a progress chart. So I make sure that when I'm doing a reading for a client that I always look at both the natal chart and the progress chart, because I think that it gives a fuller picture as to exactly what energies the person has available to them.
That is so amazing. That is a lot of information. I love her. So what I'm hearing is, most of us think about like, oh, I'm Gemini and that's as far as we go. And then there's other of us that are like, yeah, I'm Gemini. I have my Leo rising. I have my Sagittarius. And then we might understand some of the other parts of our chart and like how that helps us navigate the world. And I've even had astrologers kind of look at how things interact with each other. What Chandni has done for me is absolutely amazing because she goes so much deeper. And it's such a beautiful guidance. So tell us a little bit about, you're doing the solar chart that most of us do, right? When we do a whole lot of that. And then you're going to go over the progress chart.
Right. So I'm going to go over the natal chart, which is, the chart for when you were born. And then the progress chart, like I said, is sort of the evolution of your natal chart.
I love that. We actually evolve. I think that's an absolute alignment with what we've been talking about. And I had no idea that with the chart you could even see that evolution in the chart. And then you were talking about a third aspect. What is that?
So another chart that a lot of people don't talk about is what's called the solar return chart.
Uh-huh.
So it's the energies that are available to you for that upcoming year of your birthday. So you just had your birthday.
Yes.
So I got a chance to look at your solar return chart. A lot of good stuff happening
to see
for
what's
you.
so solar return, from what I'm hearing from you, is like what's going to happen this year starting from your birthday, your solar return.
Exactly.
And that gives you even more information. So what we've decided to do to make this a little more interactive is I'm going to get really vulnerable with all of y'all. And Chandni is going to show my solar chart and go over a couple of aspects on it, and then the progress chart and show a couple of aspects on it. We might show you the solar return. I'm not quite sure we have a lot of time to get into that,
Right.
but you can at least take a look at what that looks like. So let's get into the chart, shall we? Chandni is going to go over a chart for us and explain it so that we can understand what's going on in the natal chart.
Okay, so we're going to start off with the natal chart, which is the chart at the time and place that you were born. It's your static chart, basically. It sets up the foundation for the energies that are present for you. So both your personality and also the types of energies that are being brought into your life. And so as you can see, it's a pretty complicated chart. There's a lot of aspects to it, and we are certainly not going to get into everything today. Thank God for you guys. And so what we're going to focus on is the rising or the ascendant and the sun. So I practice a certain branch of astrology called Esoteric Astrology. It's based very strongly in Jungian thought. And so it looks at the chart as sort of a blueprint of the soul's journey. And what the ascendant is the architect of that journey in your life. And so it pulls your energy forward is basically how I would describe the ascendant. What the sun is in esoteric astrology is your core essence. So it is essentially your egoic nature, not in ego in the negative sense, but in the sort of I am sense. It is your rooted powerness, basically, is how I describe the sun. And so those two features together are really incredibly important when analyzing a chart. And so if you don't look at anything else, I would always look at your ascendant and I would always look at your sun. So with you, Kimberly,
this is the fun part.
Exactly. So we start off with your Gemini sun. And what's interesting is your Gemini sun is actually at 0 degrees. And so that's considered 0 degrees and 29 degrees of any sign are critical degrees. And so what that means is the energy is very specific at those degrees. And so for 0 degrees, you're basically like a baby Gemini. Like you've incarnated to learn the qualities of being a Gemini, basically.
Oh, wow. I've never thought of it that way.
Yeah. So you are the most distilled version of Gemini, basically. Your I amness is very Gemini rooted. So we're talking about someone who's very versatile, someone who, enjoys collaborating with others, working with others, networking with others, communicating, learning, understanding, someone who's curious, like all of those things. Life has brought you here to really bring out all of those qualities.
And I've been learning that stuff because I don't feel like that's been something that I just knew straight out of the gate. I feel like that's stuff I've learned while I've been here. So that makes sense because I have other Gemini friends that stuff's sort of like,
right.
I know how.
Yeah. You're sort of learning how to be a Gemini in this life, which is really interesting. So you have this very solid Gemini base, right? Your core essence, but your ascendant is in Leo. And so those two signs actually go really well together.
That's a good thing.
Yeah. So they create what's called a sextile. And so those two signs meld really well together. But they are very different. So Leo is a fixed sign and Gemini is a mutable sign. So a fixed sign is going to be one that's a little bit more well, the word pretty much describes it, very fixed, very kind of distinct in its characteristics, whereas Gemini is going to be a little bit more adaptable, right? So your Leo ascendant, what's fantastic about that is that it's a very powerful ascendant. It is one that is geared towards creative self-expression. Leo is all about
that sounds like what I've been doing in my life.
Exactly. It's all about creative self-expression. It's all about embodying the essence of yourself and who you are in the most authentic way possible. And so when you're looking at when you're looking at what your soul purpose is, so your ascendant, right? This is okay. It's going to get a little technical, but stick with me.
So go slow.
I'm going to go real slow. Okay.
Remember that a lot of us don't know this stuff.
Right. So like I said, Leo is on the ascendant, right? So it's the first house. So then you say to yourself, okay, what planet rules Leo? The planet that rules Leo is the sun.
Okay.
So then you look to, okay, where is the sun in this person's chart? So we look at your chart and your sun is actually in your 10th house. So the 10th house is actually your soul mission. So
that sounds about right.
Yeah. So your first house is your soul purpose, but your 10th house is your soul mission, meaning it's why you're here to help this society in a particular way. And everyone's flavor of that is very different.
Shift the vibration on the planet.
Exactly. That is your 10th house. That is the rootedness of your 10th house. And so your sun is in your 10th house, which is the ruler of your ascendant, which means that your soul purpose is integral to a mission that affects the common good and that affects the community as a whole. I mean, that's why you are here.
That's been me my whole life.
Yes.
I have felt that. I've just never had it handed to me. This is amazing. I love this level of astrology that it just never occurred to me, because that's how I've lived. And then here my chart's actually showing that.
Yeah. And what's so great is, then you can look at, so your 10th house is ruled by Taurus, and Taurus is ruled by Venus. So then we look and say, okay, where is Venus in her chart? Venus is in the 11th house.
Yep.
So 11th house has to do with friendships, associations, humanitarian efforts. The collective consciousness is how I would describe the 11th house. So we're talking about your soul purpose is to fulfill your mission to do what? Change the collective consciousness.
And share love and light.
Exactly.
It is Venus. So
it is Venus. So it's all about beauty, balance, healing, all of that stuff.
Divine love. Yeah.
Exactly. And so it's really beautiful because that's exactly what you're doing. And so you are truly on your greatest and highest timeline, which is amazing to see. And so the natal chart allows you to sort of get a huge overview of, okay, this is the span of your life. And it gives you a good foundation. And then you can look at your progress chart to see not only how have you evolved over the years, but what lessons are coming up now.
Yeah. So let's get into that progress chart, shall we?
Yeah. Okay. So as you can see, the progress chart looks a bit different. You now are in a place where you are a Virgo rising. So that's very different than Leo.
When you look at this, this is for like a specific day and time.
Yeah,
right?
This is for right now, literally.
This is like right now as we speak. I'm now in Virgo rising, which is very different, only it explains like the past. Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah, past 30 years
or
something. Yeah.
Virgo rising means.
Sure. So Virgo is considered the sacred healer, which I think is so appropriate.
And before you get deep into that, I'm sorry to interrupt. So the past 30 years.
Yeah.
So I started my life, my first 20 years.
Or so, yeah.
In like the Leo rising. And then I've shifted into Virgo rising, and I wouldn't have known that had I not had you as an astrologer and this type of astrology explaining that progression and that shift.
Yeah, and it's interesting because when someone does tell you, you can actually look back on your life and almost see when that shift happened. There's usually something that happened, something of significance when your ascendant changed and the energy's changed. And so all of a sudden your life kind of took on a different form. And so that's also what's really interesting in looking at the progressed chart is you can actually chronicle your life
I
based
could
on
probably
the progression.
look back at it. So now that after I've interrupted, I felt it was important to say that like, wow, we're looking at this new chart. I haven't ever had a progressed chart done. Some of you may or may not have been exposed to this. And Virgo rising. So tell me about Virgo rising, and I'll let it sink in for my memory banks here.
Yeah, so Virgo rising could not be any more different than a Leo rising. So,
Yes,
usually
very.
signs that are right next to each other are both a different modality and a different element. So they are completely different from each other. So you spent your formative years learning Leo traits.
Okay.
The universe brought you opportunities to learn how to be authentically yourself, how
Yes.
to be creative, how to have pride in your creativity and your creativeness, and living life in that modality.
Got it.
At some point, it shifted into Virgo. And so, like I said earlier, Virgo is the sacred healer, is what Virgo is known as. And so at some point, the universe said, okay, now you've learned how to be the embodiment of creative self-expression. We want you to take that and use that to be of service to other people.
That makes 100% sense.
And so that's where you're at right now. And looking at your chart, you've got a couple of more years in that, and then you're going to move into Libra.
I would say that happened probably, it may have been earlier, like 2008, around then.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just
So like
looking at-
around 2008 in my life. So this is amazing. So then at some point it'll shift. Like I will learn whatever lessons I learn with this, and then it shifts into something else.
Yeah, then you'll move about, it looks like maybe 4 years, I think. In about 4 years, you're going to move into Libra.
And so what does Libra do?
So Libra is going to be, so we've gone from, you've learned how to be a creative soul, to embody your creativity. You then learned how to take that creativity and use it in service of others and of humanity in general.
That's been happening like really since like 2008.
Yeah. And
like
then
really, like maybe sooner than that, but definitely that's a point, is around like, or 2010 maybe.
Yeah. And now you're pretty rooted in that. You probably, I feel that your much of your identity is based on service and healing.
Absolutely. I've been doing that for a very long time, being of service, being a healer. I'm a quantum energy healer. I love to be of service, getting messages out there. I've run lots of groups. I've taught a lot of classes, just really doing done a lot of readings.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So you're really, you're basically
planetary healing behind the scenes. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're basically embodying and have been embodying that Virgo energy.
Yeah.
And soon you'll become you're now towards the end of your Virgo. So you're kind of starting to become a master of that energy. And once you master that energy, the universe says, all right, next lesson.
Yeah.
It's time to move.
So we're in the mastery of like, hey, now we get to do Sharing Love and Light show and like really continue helping with that shift of consciousness on the planet.
Exactly.
And that's all in my star chart, in this progressive chart, that I wouldn't have gotten if I was just looking at the solar chart.
Exactly.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So, like I said, right now you're rooted in that place, that healing modality that you're in. And so just like we would do with the natal chart, where I said, okay, who's the ruler of the first house? So the ruler of Virgo is Mercury. So we're going to look to the chart and see where Mercury is. Well, Mercury is in the 11th house, which is the house of the collective unconscious. So it's basically like, the house of groups and partnerships and coalitions and, the Jungian kind of collective subconscious and unconscious.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you're learning to be of service to the collective unconscious, which is literally
Absolutely.
exactly what's happening.
Yeah.
And the interesting part is, so not only does the chart move, right, but your planets change signs. So you're actually a Cancer right now. You're in Cancer mode now, and you've been there for some time, actually. Which is totally different than Gemini. I know, because I am a Cancer.
Different than the sun sign
Yeah.
to be learning lessons in Cancer, which makes sense because being skilled in emotional intelligence
Exactly.
since about 2010, authenticity had already been started, but the learning, I don't know when that shifted. Did that shift around
It's around the same time, yeah.
Yeah, because shifting into that, like, learning emotional intelligence at that point.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so it goes from, a Gemini sun is very good about reading the group and the collective and people, right? And a Gemini sun can then, because of that, because they're so outward focused, can sometimes neglect their own inner emotional nature. Now that's where Cancer comes in, because I'm a Cancer sun.
Described me
Yeah.
that I, like, normally would neglect my emotions, and since 2010 I've been learning how to be with them. And you were saying you're a Cancer.
I'm a Cancer. So I am, like, have intimate knowledge of a Cancer sun. And the biggest thing about Cancer suns is a strong sense of emotional intelligence and emotional knowing. So it's this idea of really being able to read yourself on a very deep level, and being able to sort of understand your patterns and your behaviors and why you do things, and then being able to extrapolate that to other people. So you really develop a very high sense of emotional intelligence. And so the universe was sort of saying, okay, you've learned now how to, involve yourself with others and to sort of cater to their needs and their wants and things like that. Now it's time to turn the tables, and you've got to learn how to be emotionally available for yourself.
And that's what happened in my life, where I was just outwardly helping. And then that did happen, where there's been a whole lot of really having to learn how to, and it's learning. I'm not like the Cancer that knows how, right? It's really learning how.
Right.
It's been a real, like, ending up teaching dialectical behavioral therapy and learning how.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so it's just really interesting, because you don't realize how much you sort of change and shift as a person. And Cancer is ruled by the moon, right? And the moon in your progress chart is in the 3rd house, which is actually the house of Gemini. So we're going back to Gemini again.
At least we're staying consistent.
Exactly. And so that's all about communicating and building communities, basically.
And that's what I've been doing.
Exactly. So
building communities.
You're taking the lessons of emotionality and applying it to building communities now. And so it's just happens to be just a variation, kind of. And if you can kind of see the progression from natally, what you were brought here to do, and how your chart is sort of slowly teaching you how to be all of the components of those things in sort of like a piecemeal way.
That is amazing.
It's
that's
amazing.
for any of us. So repeat that again, that, like, you have your sun chart, like you went over, and that's like what you've brought in with you. I keep thinking of levels of consciousness, like, our non-physical aspect of ourselves decided to come in, and we chose these energies that we were going to come in on. And I chose, like, the Gemini that you talked about and the Leo rising, and then also chose to have lessons. And you're describing all the lessons that I've been in.
Exactly.
And I've been calling this, Dolores Cannon talks about this as Earth School. And so this is sort of like what I set up for myself in order to play in Earth School. And I always love when I look at the charts because you see that like the blue is like the positive kind of like these are your supporting things, and then the red's like here's your spiritual growth spots.
Right, exactly. That's exactly how I put it.
Like some people call it lessons and other people call it like spiritual growth parts. And then here we are with this progress chart. And we wanted to do this in a way where like I offered to have Chandni do my chart to demonstrate to you all so you could see it like really unfold, and then realize that for everyone out there listening, you also have a progress chart that you've been taking like piecemeal in your lessons of what you came here to do.
Yeah, and the great thing about understanding your progress chart is, so like I said, your natal chart is basically your blueprint. It's the programming you came into this life with, and it's sort of the energies that are likely to play out. So when you incarnated into Earth School, you basically, this is your lesson plan that you said, okay,
this is my lesson plan.
Exactly. This is my major, like I've majored in Gemini and this is what I'm learning. And in order to learn that, there's these other classes I have to take, right, in between. And I feel like that's what a progress chart is. It's like the classes you're taking to complete your major.
So 4 more years and I graduate
into Libra.
Into Libra. So before we wrap up with this, what does the Libra mean?
So Libra has to do largely with partnerships. So, and when I say partnerships, that means one-on-one partnerships. So that can be friendships, that can be relationships, that can be business partnerships. That's also enemies are also considered partnerships. So they're also in
they're
the Libra
part
house.
Of the spiritual growth, part of the lesson,
exactly,
part of the partnering, Yeah.
So all of this is leading you to be able to, have more meaningful now one-on-one relationships. So we've gone from a lot of group stuff, big stuff, collective consciousness, and
I was part of a group back then that was like 300 people every week, 400 people every week, at least 100 people that I was like interacting with constantly.
In 4 years, the universe is going to say, we're getting it down. We're boiling it down to one-on-one people. So it's going to start being more one-on-one interactions with people, more intimate interactions with people, which is
life.
Which is really interesting because it's going to force you to take your fantastic ability to interact with many different people and focus that energy on one and singular people at a time.
I'm getting the term intimacy.
Yes.
Connection.
Yes. Harmony, balance, all of those things.
So thank you for showing me. And we don't have that chart yet. I'm going to be excited to discover it in 4 years, like what that means and what happens. But we just wanted to give you an example of what it looks like to have the solar chart looked at, which that was just like 2 aspects of it. That's not even getting into like the serious details of the blueprint that you've brought in for astrology. People don't realize how much deeper it can go and really guide you. And like, this is your blueprint. And then you still have free will choice of like, what do you want that to look like?
Exactly. It's sort of, it's what an astrology chart allows you to do is to, I always tell people this when they hear the term timelines, right? Oh, there's multiple timelines, things like that. People think that means that there's like some, highway, like 5 highways around you. And you can, that's not what a timeline is. A timeline is a choice, basically. It's simply a choice. Once you make a choice, you jump to a new timeline. And what an astrology like analysis or reading allows you to do is to choose that timeline. So a lot of people think, oh my God, astrology is so deterministic. I don't want to know about my chart. I don't want to just feel like my fate is solidified. In my opinion, astrology gives you tremendous agency because once you have knowledge, something has come into your awareness, you can do something about it. And at that point, you are incredibly powerful. You are the operant power in your reality. And so what I love about astrology and why I'm so passionate about it and have been practicing it, for 25 years now. So long. I can't believe I'm that old, but what I love about it is it really is an empowering tool, and it has empowered not only myself, but my clients, my friends, my family, anyone who has gotten a reading has gone away feeling like they have more control of their life, not less.
Welcome back. I have Chandni here with me in the studio again. We're going to go over the third chart, which is actually putting the natal chart and the progressed chart together, which I'm really excited to see this part. So I'm going to turn it over to Chandni.
So we've talked about the natal chart. We've talked about the progressed chart. The important thing is actually to look at both charts together, because what happens is the progressed chart is going to show us what aspects of the natal chart are currently being activated.
Okay.
So it's a multifaceted kind of look at what's happening right now in your life. And so you see the chart up on the screen right now. The green placements are going to be the progressed planets. And the chart that's being shown is the natal chart. And then the red are the transits that are happening right now. So how I characterize transits are they're basically like triggers. So they trigger different aspects of your chart. And so transits are sort of the current placements where the stars are right now. You'll hear about, Mercury's going retrograde right now or something like that. That's considered a transit.
Jupiter just went into Gemini.
Exactly. So that's considered a transit. And those usually act as activators for your chart. And so we talked about earlier that Kimberly's progressed ascendant is in Virgo, right? So she's learning these Virgo lessons. Now, where is she learning these Virgo lessons in terms of her natal chart? Well, in her second house. So right now, your ascendant, your progressed ascendant, is in your natal second house, which means that you're currently learning to develop a sense of self-worth by being financially compensated for your work. So it's this idea of your work reflecting your sense of self-worth and who you are. And that's where the energies are focusing right now. And it's an important aspect of this is that actually it's conjunct your natal Pluto. And so your natal Pluto is actually in your second house. And so Pluto has to do with some of the transformative lessons that we learn in this life. So a lot of the times it has to do with sort of the shakeup. So anytime your life is being really shooken up, it's probably a Pluto issue. It's probably some sort of like Pluto transit that's happening. And what Pluto wants you to do is learn how to regenerate as a person, kind of like a lotus flower, right? Like going into the murky waters at night only to come up the next day to, absorb the sunlight. That's sort of what Pluto is asking you to do, depending upon where it is in your chart. So for you, your avenue for spiritual growth is actually through conscious manifestation, the idea of creating abundance in life, in the material plane.
So all of my life, not just like finances,
right?
But just like abundance everywhere.
Everywhere. It will show itself though in the material plane. So financially will be where it most shows itself. So basically what you're doing is you're decoupling your sense of value from any 3D affirmations. So Pluto is kind of like it's the planet that sort of starves you. It starves you of the very thing that it wants you to learn.
And we're laughing because she knows the backstory
right.
of what I've been through since, the end of last year into this year.
Yeah, the theme is spot on.
Through. Yeah, it's really like absolutely 100%
right. So
accurate.
So with
the lessons and learning how to manifest.
Exactly.
And I have a lot of skill now in, seeing manifests happen. And yes, I've been through those like big bottoms. Like, what in the world is this? Why is this happening? I've worked so hard, and why am I experiencing this happening? Especially my ability to like take care of myself financially and things like that. And you're explaining it through my chart.
And it's spot on. So with the progressed ascendant in Virgo conjunct her natal Pluto, what the universe is asking her to do right now is shedding old identities, beliefs, and patterns that no longer serve her highest good,
And
with respect to
100% been
abundance.
doing that.
Yeah.
And I've 100% been like, sorry to interrupt. I just get so excited.
Yeah.
100%. That's what I've been doing.
Right.
Is really learning to like face some of the programming that I grew up with around abundance, around finances, the core beliefs that I grew up with that kind of stuff. And most of it were like a lot of limiting beliefs.
Yeah.
A lot of very restrictive beliefs that have been passed down for generations. Even I think it was like third generational beliefs that have been passed down.
Yeah, and that's why it's such
so Pluto.
It's so,
so
Pluto.
Deep.
It's so deep. It's so karmic, which is very Pluto. And
some past lives that
exactly
I've cleared out around it as well.
Exactly. So when Pluto's involved, we're talking past lives, we're talking ancestral programming, we're talking
I get chills as you're talking. We did not plan what she's reading for me right now, by the way, and it's really, I'm getting chills because that's exactly what I've been doing over the past like few months.
And that's fantastic.
Longer than that, over the past year, like it's already started.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what the universe wants you to do right now. And that's what you're doing, which is fantastic, which means you are operating on your highest timeline. And so,
and stepping forward anyway, that's the lessons is releasing it and then like continuing to step forward, continuing to shed, release, and step forward anyway.
Right. And there are some supportive energies right now, sort of harmonious aspects in your chart that are aiding this. Your progressed ascendant is trine your natal sun. So your natal sun in Gemini, and it's quintile. Quintile is 72 degrees. It's not an aspect a lot of astrologers use. I'm obsessed with quintiles. I think they're fantastic because they show what your unique talents are. They show what you've come into this life kind of as your most unique sense of self. And so I love quintiles. And so it's quintile your natal moon in Sagittarius. And so you're in a position where if you deliberately practice your talents and your ability to create kind of your self-expression, then you will effortlessly manifest, which is so fantastic. And so these supportive aspects, when I talked about Pluto, it probably sounded, is Pluto always, sounds like horrific. You're like, oh my God, this is
I've
like,
been going through that. And yet there's been this supportive kind of like the more authentic I am, the more I step out authentically, the more I'm supported.
Exactly. The very thing that Pluto is asking you to learn will happen. And so that's one of the interesting things is that your chart is able to even tell you what to do in terms of using the energies. And so if you just step into your authenticity, which you have been doing, then that ability to manifest is going to happen actually effortlessly.
And I found that to happen that if I'm doing it in older ways of doing it, they don't work for me. But when I just get in alignment with me, in alignment with my soul, and I step forward fully aligned, then things start falling into place.
Exactly.
Like literally effortlessly.
Right.
Like,
exactly.
Didn't see that coming. Right.
And so, we talked also about her progressed sun, right? And it's in Cancer right now, which is so different than Gemini. And the placement is in her natal 12th house. So your 12th house has to do with spirituality, transcendence, sort of the unseen realm, things like that. And so you're currently in a period of emotional sensitivity, and it's catalyzing a lot of deep introspection.
100%.
And the purpose is to release ego attachments, basically surrender, and allow the divine to guide you.
The theme of my life, absolutely, right now, in this sort of past year, I think, even actually the past 10 years really has been that.
Yeah.
That's what we were talking about.
Right. Exactly.
It just hit me. Like the past 10 years has been very much about learning how to face emotions, learning how to become way more emotionally intelligent than I was in the past. And to really, this makes 100% sense.
And Pluto is again activated. So you've got some more Pluto stuff.
And I'm continuing needing to do that. So then, yes, there's more Pluto going on
Exactly.
for me. Keep going.
But the good thing is that in this instance, it's making what's called a sextile to your natal Pluto. And that's a really positive aspect. So what it's doing is it's fortifying you with inner strength and resilience to do the shadow work and release the ego. So that can be, of course, very painful when you're having an ego death. But the universe has equipped you with the ability to ride through that experience. So when Pluto's involved, it's not just regeneration, but there's also a sense of emotional strength. And in this case, Pluto is actually helping you to have the strength to go through that very, what can be a very tumultuous process when you're digging into the subconscious.
And I'm getting my clairsentient chill bumps because that's exactly currently what my life is like and what I have been going through.
Yeah.
That I've also had that someone was looking at me and they're clairvoyant and they were like, you have a lion with you. I was like, that's that Pluto you're talking about, that courage, that strength to
exactly.
I've really overcome a lot just, in the past few years. And I've had the courage to dig deep into those shadows, which let me tell you all, it is not for the faint of heart to dig into some of those shadows.
No, it is not.
Yeah. Yeah. And to come out on the other side and now I know I can do it. I know I can do it.
Exactly. It gives you a sense of confidence.
I don't like it when I do it. I think
Nobody
all
does.
of us would say that.
No.
And yet, like my friend says, yay, spiritual growth, but I see it more as more opportunities for growth. I just had a weekend I went through probably 2 weekends ago that was deep inner healing and like that deep, like ancestry, painful, facing, feeling, releasing. And then when I came out on the other side, I was like, this is great. But when you're going through it, I love this, that there's something in my chart saying that's why you were able to get through it, because there was that support there.
Exactly.
That energy support.
Right.
Yeah.
And so since Pluto has been featured so strongly in this combined chart, what I like to do is look at what the transits are doing. So let's see what the universe is sort of activating right now in terms of your natal Pluto. So your natal Pluto is being trined by the transiting Uranus that's happening right now, and transiting Jupiter. So that's great. We love trines. Trines are fantastic. And so Uranus is all about triggering sudden insights, unconventional solutions, forcing you to be willing to embrace change.
100%. Those are the things I've been learning.
Exactly. Yeah. And so there's going to come into your life sudden opportunities to manifest abundance and support entrepreneurial projects. So you're in a place right now, as opposed to many people who, need to get a 9-to-5 job, or they need structure in order to manifest abundance. You right now actually need less structure in that sense. You are supposed to be creating the structure. So not structure that has been imposed outside of you, but one that you actually build yourself. And so any entrepreneurial projects right now are going to flourish because you're in a position to be able to structure your life in a way that lends itself to success.
And that makes sense to me because I have, people in my life that do really well where they have the job that they got, or that's really like what they were led to. And for me, I'm like the entrepreneur life, which is, really, you can't have your emotional wounds and your limited beliefs in the way of that. You have to work through that stuff in order to really be an entrepreneur. So anyone out there that's wanting to be an entrepreneur, you end up facing all that stuff and releasing it and clearing it, because otherwise, you might as well go get the 9-to-5 job. But I was talking to Chandni about, I even attempted to get my old type of jobs and the universe wasn't supporting that at all.
No,
it was like, you are gonna, it was like, Kimberly, you are gonna step out and you are gonna do this thing.
Yeah. Like I said,
and we're gonna make you do it.
Exactly. Pluto is all about denying basically the very thing that would make you feel comfortable achieving what it's asking you to do. So it's comfortable to get a 9-to-5 job and be secure in your abundance. What's uncomfortable is to be an entrepreneur and be responsible for your own abundance. But Pluto wants you to do that. And with Uranus in the mix right now, it's, it's giving you both opportunities to do that, but it's also, it's not stable, right? It's opportunities that you have to act on. And that's sort of the exciting part. Uranus is very sort of eccentric and exciting, and it brings that sort of jazzed up energy. But what this is all allowing you to do is liberating you from those past emotional wounds and limiting beliefs.
And this makes sense that when you do a chart with someone, what I'm hearing you say is you can uncover all these truths for them energetically that are there. And as you're talking about this, I'm like, and we just talked earlier about some things that are supporting me, the more that I am myself. And one of the things I discovered about me that's different than a lot of my friends is I thrive on not knowing what's going to happen next. Where a lot of my friends, and I know definitely my parents, so that would be,
I do not thrive.
Does not thrive in that environment. And that is absolutely, I thrive more in not knowing what's going to happen next than in routine.
Yeah. And that's why that Uranus energy is really one that you're comfortable with, you're able to handle. Yeah. And then Jupiter's in the mix, which is always great. I love when Jupiter's in the mix because Jupiter then sort of it's an expansive energy. So whatever it's shedding light on, it's expanding. So there's going to be this renewed in taking action and having agency in your life. There's going to be this renewed sense of confidence and inner strength. And you're going to start manifesting abundance by seamlessly connecting with the inherent abundance of the universe. So there's going to be this just like coalescing almost that happens as you're working through all these energies. You're just going to seamlessly approach the abundance of the universe and be able to expand.
And this is what happened for me when I did go through surrender and then started just living what we're talking about for me, not for everybody, but for me, living in that like one moment at a time, just take the next action, do it as authentically as possible. And we talked before about authenticity being so important.
Right.
That finding out who you really are and expressing that completely fully, that as soon as I embraced that, for anyone else, that would be unnerving. But I discovered that I love that risk-taking, embracing change. Like I like unconditional, all of this is like definitely me. And I feel like recently that I have that renewed sense of confidence and inner strength because I've been doing that.
Exactly. It's almost like
I have been stepping out.
Yeah, it's really strange because it's almost like the more you step out of your comfort zone, the more confidence and inner strength you're going to have.
And I'm so glad you said that because anyone that's ever heard me talk about it, stepping out of your comfort zone means making yourself uncomfortable. And that's what I've been doing is really like stepping out of the comfort zone.
Right.
And just doing it.
Yeah. Which is
in whatever it is. Clearly for mine, it's, around, I'm on a mission. I really want to share my voice. I want to really help a lot of people in a large way. Mm-hmm. And that's like what's been happening.
Exactly. So that's how you read both charts together. And that's really crucial, in my opinion, when I do readings for clients. This is how I do readings. I make sure to combine both charts because, as you can see, your natal chart lays the foundation, but as you're moving through your life, different aspects of it are being presented to you. And so when you look at the progressed chart in relation to the natal chart, you know exactly what aspects of your natal chart are currently being presented. So yeah, that's you. That's you in a nutshell, baby.
Thank you so much for that. And thank you all for allowing us to share these charts with you. We really appreciate it. And we are going to wrap it up. So we are back again in the studio to talk a little bit more with Chandni and to kind of wrap it up a bit. I'm so excited that we came on here to talk about astrology with you because it is so enlightening. Tell me again the astrology that this is based on.
So it's a branch of astrology called esoteric astrology.
So esoteric astrology. I just wanted to make sure that the listeners and the people watching this hear that.
Yeah.
This is esoteric astrology. And I've really, really enjoyed this. I love the passion that you have behind it when you're reading a chart. And you can tell that you're also tapping into that like intuition while you're doing it. And while you were talking, I was thinking about a friend of mine who she had some of her chart read, and everything in her chart is all about her like being with family. And she literally like lives on like farmland, and her parents live there, and her aunt's going to live there.
Mhm.
And her mother-in-law lived there until she crossed over. And she's like a only child married to an only child who have an only child, and they all like live pretty much in the same area.
Mhm.
And it's a very, very different story than mine.
Yeah.
And she still shines her light and like is really, spiritually growing and all of that, but looks totally different. And it would be really interesting to see like her progressive chart as well.
Right.
With that. But to wrap it up, I just wanted to add that as like that flavor to, you were doing my chart and that's what it looks like. And then that idea of like, and yours is different too, because you come in as Cancer.
Yeah.
What's your rising sign?
So I am a Cancer sun with an Aries rising. So those two signs are square each other 90 degrees, which means they don't really get along very well.
Oh, so you have a lot of like this kind of like conflict in your
Yeah. So
that explains it.
Yeah.
And then with the progressed, what does that look like now? Do you
know?
So
I'm a Leo sun now. So I'm really I'm embodying my creative self-expression, my I amness, my power. And that's definitely translated over the years. And I'm a Taurus rising. So that's rooting in a lot more stability. So Aries is all fire, right? So I know how to just go and move and make things happen, and I don't really care about the consequences of it. But a Taurus is a lot more deliberate. And it's
you're
the bull.
Becoming more and more. And I've seen this in your life, even recently.
Yeah, so just stability.
Thank you for that briefness, because I think that adds like even more flavor to what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So think about that for yourselves as you're listening to this, of how amazing this content can be. So we do have a few more minutes, probably, for you to share just a little bit more on your passion with astrology and anything else that you want to share love and light with the audience. I think we could probably go on for another like 8 or 10 minutes with that.
Okay, sure. Yeah, so my passion for astrology really boils down to its ability to help me transform, to be honest. It started off with me. And so, like most people, I am hopelessly flawed. And
welcome to human being.
Exactly. Welcome to Earth. And
we call it flawed, but like I'm absolutely set up to have spiritual growth.
Exactly.
While I'm here on this earth, and to be an earthling.
Exactly. Yeah. And so, in order to navigate that, I started looking at astrology when I was 12 years old. And
wow, that's young.
Yeah. And that's actually when I was diagnosed with depression at 13. And so it was sort of around that time where I was really lost, actually, and really looking for something to help me understand myself. And the universe, in all of its infinite knowledge and wisdom, one day I was on AOL. I don't know if anyone here is.
I remember AOL
for AOL. But
for those of us that are old enough.
Yeah. I remember one day I was on AOL.
For being on the computer looking stuff up.
Yeah. And my horoscope popped up, and I read it, and I don't know what about it just called to me. And all of a sudden I just started like scouring the internet about every possible thing astrology. And when I did, and I started learning more about myself, I started being able to take a little bit more control of experiences that I felt were out of my control. And so in doing that, in getting so much out of it for myself personally, I started using it to help other people, because I thought to myself, well, God, if it's helping me, it's
Absolutely.
certainly going to help other people. And so it just became something that I felt very passionate about. And when I started getting introduced to Jung and, his concepts of shadow work and the collective unconscious and things like that, it really it lended itself so well to the study of astrology. So combining those two has been tremendously powerful.
That sounds really fascinating to bring Carl Jung, because he was very spiritual,
Yeah.
into the astrology.
And he used to use astrology actually in his psychoanalysis. So,
That's
it's very
amazing. I
Jungian.
did not know that
Mhm.
about Carl Jung.
Yeah.
Carl Jung. Sorry. I'm digressing while we're on here.
It's
And
the
that's
it's the
okay.
Gemini in you.
It's the Gemini in me. Did you see me play that Gemini out quite well? So, yeah. And then you've had your life story that you've lived, and now you're coming out on the other side really like shining and being in your more true, and that's what you're working on, right? That more true, authentic
Yeah.
expression of who you really are.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think that is absolutely the place I'm in right now. This past year, in fact, has been one of tremendous change and growth. Last year was very much, again, what Jung would call a dark night of the soul.
Dark night of the
Yeah.
soul, dark
So-
night of the ego
Exactly.
is what I call it.
It was an absolute ego
The
death.
dark night of the ego.
And it was excruciating.
Yeah.
But on the other side, oh my God,
You've come out shining. You
Exactly.
have.
I feel like
Yeah.
I am just embodied in light.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
what an amazing experience to have. And so what I love about astrology is, like I said, it helps you in times of difficulty. And it
Mhm.
helps to guide you in times of difficulty, but even in times of triumph, it's great because it gives you sort of hope and a sense of excitement for the future. Like when I've looked at your chart.
There's the one other chart that we're not going to get into, which is
So the solar return chart is your chart that's cast at the location of where you celebrate your birthday. So your birthday was just a couple days ago, and I looked at your solar return chart, and wow, you got a fun year.
I'm
coming
excited.
up.
So then I'm going to get this solar return chart done, and it's really exciting.
Yeah, it's super exciting.
So you can find out what's coming, get an idea for it, and it's not without its challenges, and at the same time it's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, it allows you to, again, it helps you kind of deep dive because you have your natal chart, which is your entire life. Then you have your progress chart, which is sort of like the evolvement of your natal chart. But your solar return says, hey, in the next year, these are the things that is going to happen.
Year.
Yeah.
And this was just an example. Thank you so much for doing this.
Sure.
With me.
This was
You're
so fun.
Such a beautiful shining light. And we were able to do in studio with each other.
I know, this is great.
Which we decided as we're rolling the thing around to do this together. So thank you so much. I'm going to give you a big hug on screen.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for watching us. And definitely, what's a good way to say goodbye to everyone today? Sending you love and light.
Sending you love and light.
Sending you love and light, all of you. Thank you so much for joining us on Sharing Love and Light Show. We hope you will join us again next week for more beautiful love and light messages so we can raise the vibration and consciousness on the planet. See you next week, sending you lots of love and light.